Welcome to our Arts and Public Service Career Panel. Okay, this morning we have four wonderful guests with us, and I'm going to do a quick introduction of them, and then we're going to ask them some questions. And you're going to hear from them and their advice, and it's going to be gold for you. Okay, so let me start with some introductions. Our first person on your right is Sean Mitchell, and he's the brand ambassador for Big Brothers and Big Sisters. Okay. Sean Mitchell is a first-generation college graduate from William Jewell College, the class of 2025. So recent, congratulations. Where he earned a degree in communications with a minor in public relations and an emphasis in sports media. He currently serves as a brand ambassador for the Big Brothers Big Sisters of Greater Kansas City, an organization he's been deeply connected to for over 12 years. Sean's journey with the organization began when he was a little guy, and he grew into leadership roles, including serving as the nation's first Voice of Potential. He went on to complete multiple internships with the Big Brothers Big Sisters full-time before he joined the agency full-time. His professional experience is rooted in his passion for advancing the mission of the Big Brothers and Big Sisters and amplifying its impact in the community. So we thank you, Sean, very much for coming. About a year ago, our Career Development Center had the opportunity to tour the organization, and it is fantastic. And he informs us today that they have a huge groundbreaking for a building next door that will even expand their operations, a permanent additional building. So we look forward to being able to come and visit that. And I guess you all are welcome. Okay, thank you, Sean. Next to Sean, we have Ms. Hunter Lefevers, thank you, who is a master's in social work for the engagement and development specialist for the 10th Court System Judicial of Kansas. Heather has worked in both government and nonprofit for 13 years and currently serves as the engagement and development specialist for the 10th Judicial District Court in Johnson County, Kansas. In this role, Heather supports staff development and creates opportunity for learning and engagement. We thank you very much for coming. Next to her, we have Sherry Jacobs, who is an art therapist. So if we're not sure what that is, she's going to help us understand a little bit more about that. And she's an art therapist and a marriage and family therapist and mediator for Heartland Art Therapy. Sherry is a registered art therapist, licensed clinical marriage and family therapist, and founder of Heartland Art Therapy. She is also a co-editor of the recently published EMDR and Creative Arts Therapists. Sherry has worked in the mental health field for several decades with a wide variety of populations across the city metro. Thank you so much, Sherry, for joining us. And last but not least, we have Ms. Amy Hildebrand, who is a graphic designer and professor here at JCCC in the graphic design department. Amy is a design professional who offers extensive experience in the area of art direction and developing high-level design strategies. She's known for quickly conceptualizing and strategizing consumer needs for various products with a high aesthetic of type, layout, and overall design. After graduating from JCCC with a dual associates in graphic design and liberal arts, she has enjoyed a 25-year-long career as a senior designer at Hallmark Cards. She has since become an adjunct professor in the graphic design program here at JCC for the last 5 years. Amy shares her vast in-the-field experience with her students and helps nurture their skills to ensure industry expectations and facilitate their successes. Okay, so with that, let's give our panel of experts a wonderful round of applause. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to pose out a question that the panelists are aware of, and they're just going to give and talk with you and give you their words of wisdom, their pearls of advice. Okay, so we'll get started with, could you each briefly share a little bit about your career journey and how to prepare for your career?
So I feel like I took a little bit more of the traditional route with getting a bunch of internships prior with the organization I felt connected to. So the biggest thing there would just be kind of get familiar with what you want to do like later in your college career. You don't have to rush anything, but when your junior is approaching or your senior is approaching, there's a company that you just feel a connection with, and you feel like there's internship opportunities, even if it's not in a department that you end up working for. Like I did 2 events internships and I work with our community outreach team. That was just an opportunity for me to get in front of just all the different execs because we're only a staff of about 65. So we see our execs from day to day, we see our directors from day to day. So it's an opportunity for me to network with them and build connections with them early. So when you come back to applying for a position, they already know your face and they've learned a little bit more about you because you've been invested with the agency before.
So I'm Hunter, my career journey. So I did probation when I started after my undergrad. I did that for let's see, about 5 years. And then I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do for my continued education. Eventually decided I wanted to pursue my master's in social work. I thought I wanted to go to law school for a little bit, worked at a law firm for a brief time, found out, oh, I don't actually want that. Making sure I turned that on, sorry, which I think is really great what he was talking about with internships. Any experience that you guys can get to figure out, do I like this? Is this what I want to do? Those are great opportunities to kind of figure that out. While I was getting my MSW, my focus was in clinical. So I did a clinical practicum at our local domestic violence shelter here, learned a lot there. After I completed my MSW, I did forensic interviews at a local nonprofit for about 4 years before the position that I currently have was created and I stepped into that role. So it's a little bit about my background.
Hi, so I had no idea what I wanted to do in college. I majored in international relations, I focused on conflict resolution and was in the early environmental movement many decades ago. And then I didn't know, I'd never heard of art therapy. And many people say when they learn about the field, it's like something snaps and they're like, I don't know what that is, but that's what I want to become. And so I didn't hear about art therapy till I was in my mid-20s and I literally did a 180 and switched my career path and haven't looked back.
So I did know what I wanted to do, but I thought, well, I need to take drawing classes and painting classes because I knew that I wanted to be in the arts. And I found myself in a life drawing class, and then one of the students next to me had a piece of a project from the graphic design area. And I looked at it and I'm like, where do you go do that? And she was like, it's on the other side of the campus. And so I walked myself right over there, got enrolled and graduated. And then in the program, one of the last classes that you'll take is a pro prep class and it includes an internship. And they asked us to give 3 choices of where we would like to go intern, and I put Hallmark. And so I did a full day of interviews, and then I was offered a couple of positions I could pick from, and then the rest was history. So, and in my career, I worked alongside graphic designers that were from 4-year powerful schools like Ringling and SCAD, and I felt like JUCO's program set me up for success, and I never felt like my schooling I almost felt like JUCO gave me an edge because they really set us up to hit the ground running with wherever we went. And I felt like these other students or grads from other 4-year universities were kind of like, they were all about their craft, but they really didn't understand corporate environment and file prep and things like that gave me an edge, I felt like. So that's my story. Oh, sorry.
Isn't that great? So we've learned a little bit about their background, their bios, their education, and now a little bit about their career paths. We're going to turn a little bit of direction here, and we're going to talk about skills and preparations. And this one is really your golden pieces of advice to our audience. What skills, whether they be technical or soft skills, do you see in your industries as most valuable for the students right now, whether they're entering or they're preparing for their future careers? What skill sets would you like to see better? You can start. Sure.
I think skills that are really important currently in my field where I work in the courthouse would be customer service and de-escalation skills. So people skills. So making sure you're knowing how to interact with other people, I think is really important.
Yeah, I think one of the big ones, I work in a nonprofit, so one of the bigger ones that we see a lot is your ability to network. I go to a lot of networking events, so being able to, be comfortable, being uncomfortable, walking up to someone you've never met before and kind of sparking a conversation. It's never easy because you don't really know what to talk about at first, but finding ways to tie it into how they can be involved in our organization. Another thing you see a lot in nonprofit, especially in my job, is getting used to saying no. I do a lot of recruitment, so my job is to try and recruit bigs, try to recruit littles, corporate sponsors, ask people for money, whatever the case may be. So get used to being no and be comfortable with that. I pretty much have been there for 6 months and now I have no problem with it because I've asked for, $20 and I've asked for $200,000. So it kind of just varies, and then understanding like you're doing it for a reason, like they're saying no for a reason. So maybe there's more of a relationship you can build there. No isn't always no. Nonprofit, that's kind of how we see it. You could ask someone for $2,000, they say no, and then you can go have coffee with them, kind of talk to them a little bit more about the organization, then ask them for $1,000 and they say yes. So until there's just like nothing more you can do, like keep trying.
So for the mental health field, I would say empathy, having people skills. And the best piece of advice I got in graduate school when the students were heading out and feeling undereducated or new and green was a professor said, they don't care how much you know when they know how much you care. And I lived by that in the first couple of years as I was trying to figure my career path out and figure out how to be a good clinician. And so I think empathy and people skills are crucial.
Yeah, I feel like over every industry, people skills for sure. And networking is just kind of an umbrella statement for almost every industry. For graphic design particularly, I tell my students that, we're sort of different in the sense that not everybody can look at a blank screen or a blank piece of paper and then turn it into something that's aesthetically pleasing. And we're in the communication field, we're visually communicating. And so along those skills, I would say that to welcome critique and that not everything that you create is precious. And most times you're going to be working for a client and the client is paying us to create something that they want. And we're the vehicle, but we have to, at the end of the day, you got to make your client happy. So just kind of tabling that not everything that we create is going to be the best thing in the world, that really is it's just serving a need for the client. And so it kind of disassociates from an emotional point of view that we can do for when you're creative. So
It's all great advice, isn't it? 4 very different industries and great advice. One of the things that we're going to talk about next is the uniqueness of your industries and what that environment looks like and feels like and what that culture is and what makes your environment stand out or be different from others because you're serving different populations all within the same realm.
Okay, I can start.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things that you see in nonprofit that you might not see in the for-profit world is just, in my opinion at least, is just how much our executives care about the mission as well. Like all of our executives were bigs at one point, so they're invested in the mission just as much as an entry-level position. But also the organization runs on the people that work there. So we don't get government funding, like everything we get is earned, right? So if we have a really good year, we can almost guarantee we're gonna have raises that next year. So it's kind of pushes you each year to want to work harder. And then when you have a down year and maybe your salary might drop $1,000, $2,000, like understanding that there's something that we did where we fell off. So like there's no, like the root to the cause of all the problems is normally like internal. It's not something that, oh, we didn't have this person donate, well, why not? There's always an answer. So people are really go-getters in the nonprofit world, and you see that a lot in just how they work and how willing they are to work. Like I have like an hourly salary, so I have my base salary, but I can also get like overtime for taking that extra step and going a little bit further. So I feel if I'm not doing my part and working just a couple extra hours every week, that could be the difference between me making $60,000 and me making $50,000.
I'm going to take my answer a little bit differently, but I think that so with civic education, we start that around 3rd grade in the state of Kansas. And so part of that involves kids come to the courthouse from 3rd grade all the way to college students for tours or to observe things within the courthouse. And I always start with asking some simple questions like, who do you think works here? Who are we going to talk to today? And the kids are always like, there's a judge here, or there's a bailiff. And I'm like, well, bailiffs are actually different in our jurisdiction, but getting off topic. And so I think it's really cool because at the courthouse, we actually have so many different avenues that you can take. Some of you may or may not know, but we have a library inside of our Johnson County Courthouse, and it's we're very fortunate. Not every jurisdiction has that. So we have librarians. I asked one of our librarians once on a tour, I was like, can you tell the kids like why you did this, why you like this? She's like, well, I used to be a librarian on the public side, and she's like, I really like nonfiction. And I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense. So I think until you get out there and see, you don't realize all these other positions. So I think that's what's really unique about the courthouse and the court system is it takes all kinds of different backgrounds. And so I think that's something that you could explore as well. Like we knew that there were librarians inside of the courthouse, so it'll assist you.
So I have 2 master's degrees. I have one in a talk therapy field called marriage and family therapy, and I have a separate master's in a field called art therapy, which is its own field. And what I love is watching the transition right now in the past decade or so as other fields are starting to validate the importance of the arts. And really many people in my field are extending their education into the field of neuroscience and recognizing for many decades, we were showing and thinking about how to do art therapy and how art therapy matters. It's sort of transitioned into why, the whys meaning like the evidence that is validating and helping create like a different meaning for why the arts matter, and the importance of creative arts and the mental health field and beyond.
So I think how I would answer that is that in our field, animation is obviously on the rise. It's trending right now. I'm seeing that with my students. The program here at JUCO doesn't necessarily right now, it's kind of its own, like there's the branch or the department of animation, and then there's the branch of graphic design. And then there's the fine art side. And so what I encourage my students to do is and a lot of them have just done it themselves because it makes sense that if you go the animation route, that you really need to understand the why you're designing the way you're designing. And you can't know that unless you are taking the fundamentals of design, which you'll learn in the graphic design department. So I would that's my encouragement is just to, if animation is the kind of a route that you're gonna wanna go, knowing how to draw and understanding proportion and design fundamentals is gonna be pivotal, so.
That's terrific. So we see that within the whole area of arts or public service, there's a lot of variety, isn't there? There's a lot of uniqueness and there's a lot of opportunity. It goes deep within each field. I didn't know there was a library at the court system.
Yeah.
This is all new and great information. Okay, so now we're gonna move on and talk for just a minute about student opportunities within these areas. And it doesn't have to necessarily be your company. If it is your company, that's just bonus, but we're not putting you on the spot for that. But what are the opportunities that you see within your areas that you represent for our students to really dive into, maybe think of something different and to expose them to that before they graduate?
It feels like we got a trend going here of kind of moving down the.
Yeah, I mean, for our agency at least, we have seasonal internships, whether it's with our events team or we have like multi-departmental interns. So just kind of get your foot wet, see what team would suit you best. We have like 6 different teams, so there's definitely a variety to choose from, and you can see like the different personality traits in all of our different team members. Like our community outreach team is very energetic and outspoken, and they love to talk. And anytime we like a stand up, like the other people that are raising their hands and talking about what's going on in the agency. But another one is just like volunteering, whether it's events or just learning a show of things. Like that's a very underrated quality that a lot of people don't really have anymore. Just volunteering their time, understanding that you might not get paid for it, but you're still learning a lot of very valuable traits that can help you in your professional life.
I think what he's talking about with volunteering too, that goes back to that networking. It's really important who you know in this type of work. I would say currently at the courthouse with my current position, you can email me and I can give you a tour, whether that's you by yourself or if that's a group. We just had JCCC's Criminal Justice Club come out and do a tour, and then I was able to get them connected to the person at the jail who does tours over there so that they could do that as well. So it sounds like there's a lot of really cool groups here at your college, figuring out what those are, what your interests may be, how can you join those, what types of things are they doing, I think is really important. And then I would say, yes, I may have hinted on this earlier, but you guys are in the perfect time, like volunteer or get an internship, figure out what you like or don't like now. It's so important and you're not locked into anything. I think that sometimes we think, oh, I chose this and I have to do this. Okay, well, that's not always the case. You said you have 2 different degrees, you've done different things. So we've all been there where we're like, oh, I think I want this to be my path, but ooh, actually, I just met this new person and they told me about this new job. And I want to learn more about that. So important. And it's okay to change your mind. That's okay.
So in the art therapy field, people have to have a master's degree to call themselves an art therapist. But one of the best kept secrets is one of the oldest and most reasonably priced programs in the United States is Emporia State University. There's about 25 graduate schools, and if you've ever looked at the price of private graduate schools, it's insane. And so if you're a Kansas resident, Emporia State is just one of the most treasured programs in the country. And if you're really interested, every spring, like around spring break time, Emporia offers what they call Discovery Day, and it's a full day for potential students to come and just get a taste and an idea of what art therapy is like. They do panels with the faculty and they bring in like a wonderful art therapist from somewhere in the United States. And so I highly recommend that. It's ESU's art therapy department. You might want to just get on their email list. I don't know if they've declared the date yet.
Yeah, so I would say, I see one of my past students in the back there. So we, here at JUCO, we have a, it's a 120 section. It's called Introduction to Graphic Design. And the way it's structured is that every other week, we actually bring professionals from graphic design and they just speak for about an hour about a day in the life of what it looks like in their agency. And we really try to have a variety from like a niche to a medium to large agencies around the city that you can just glean information from, and they're there to really just be there for any and all questions. So we open it up at the end for a Q&A. And then the other weeks, the off weeks, is a lecture week, and so that's where I just kind of walk through. These are just kind of some fundamental things that would be required if you want to move forward in this field. And so that way it's nice for you guys because if it's anything at all that you might be interested in, you can just dip your toe in and see if it's a right fit for you. And then if it's not, then you've only got a semester of this little class that can just help you decide. So I would have liked it when I was coming here. So it would have helped me to know I should have been not dinking around in the fine art area. I should have been starting with graphic design initially. So anyway, it's a wonderful program to get to be able to check it out before you really commit. So.
Thank you. Isn't that great advice? One of the little pieces of advice I want to give representing the Career Development Center is that over the course of your life, you're going to have many different careers. You'll probably have 10 to 12 different careers. It doesn't mean, one day you're going to be an engineer and the next day you're an art therapist. But within your field that you go down, whatever path that path is going to take you different ways, isn't it? So you start down one path and then there's these tributaries off this path and you're going to go down these tributaries. And I think you all four have spoken really well about how you set out on the path and how it kind of weaved around and did some direction. So I love Hunter's advice. All the advice has been great. Her point was you're not going to make a mistake. Nobody can take education from you, and you just have to ask for help, right? If you're not sure, and that's what the Career Development Center is about, doing assessments and helping you. And we have so many resources, but I'll do that commercial at the end, okay? All right, so now we're gonna move on and take a look about, can we look to the future? Can we put our future hats on and try to project for our students? What does the future look like in your different fields and what you anticipate seeing in the future? And you could be thinking about, okay, how can I start to think about getting ready for that now?
Yeah, so I think that one of the big things that our CEO talks about is expanding and then going deeper. So right now with our capital campaign, that's our expansion. And then when that's finished, the initiative there to go deeper with our connection, deeper with the lives that we're touching, which is going to open up job opportunities. So, be on the lookout in the next couple of years if you guys are interested in getting involved in nonprofit. But also, as a nonprofit, it's kind of just like the pace that we make it. So, we could easily go to a school-based model and, just hire a bunch of employees to kind of go to the schools and interact with these kids, but we feel taking the community-based model, which is the more difficult model for our agencies, and growing with that and trying to continue our recruitment and finding different ways we can, connect the community to the organization. I can't, predict what's gonna happen long term, like specifically, but I think there's a lot of growth opportunities with the organization, and as long as, we're doing what we can do internally, and everything externally will be fine.
I think that's a loaded question, because you don't know. Some of your ideas that you guys are gonna have on your career journey are gonna be great. Some of them are gonna be not so great, and that's okay. You have to be flexible and be able to pivot with these things. So, like, hey, this is my idea, bring your idea to somebody, like, what does somebody else on the team think? Like, be cautious of groupthink, but figure out like what barriers are there for this? How do we eliminate those barriers? Like, do we have it like a time frame where we try it, and if it doesn't work, where we pivot, or just be open to those things. I think another skill set from what we talked about earlier is just flexibility, and that's something I struggle with personally. So it's not always easy when you're committed to an idea, you're just so certain this is gonna work, and maybe it'll work later on in a different season of employment or a different season of life, different season of leadership. And so I just wanted to add that in there, but I think currently my position is unique in the district courts. I don't believe there's another position like mine in the state, and I supervise our resource navigator within our courthouse, and so she works with our eviction court and trying to keep court users and tenants in Johnson County housed, which is really great, and she does so by connecting them to different resources in the community, which I think is really important. And so the National Center for State Courts is doing some stuff with what they're calling court navigation, so having people like me and Jill that I supervise in the courthouse to kind of help court users navigate the court system in a way that maybe feels a little less scary, making sure they're having access to resources. If there's a barrier such as I can't get off of probation because I can't pay my fine, or I'm not paying my rent this month because I have to be able to put food on the table. So being able to connect them to resources to try and eliminate some of those barriers. I foresee that, or that's at least my hope, that things like that, programs like that continue to expand within the court system to help everybody.
So, I'd like to talk about AI, because the question I think many of us ask in our career stage and in your launching your careers is, will my pursuit be eliminated because of AI? Can I find a career that will be helped with AI? And in the therapy field, that's a big question. In the talk therapy field, the scary doomsday-ish thinking is that online therapy like BetterHelp has been recording every session to create an algorithm over the past 10 years so that eventually they can eliminate the humans out of the thing, and BetterHelp will just be AI. And we're already noticing people in private practice are already noticing a drop, that there's less people coming because we assume people are already going to AI. The question for art therapy is, I don't think it could be replaced because it's too nuanced. It's so specific. And AI will hopefully help us with generating image and generating images faster and in a more effective way for people that don't necessarily want to get their hands dirty or get too creative of making art. But I think that's a question many of you probably are asking yourselves, like, what can I do that won't be replaced, or what can I do to partner into this era that we don't even know what it's going to be in a couple of years? But I think there will always be a need for human connection. And I think that maybe the initial dazzling of going to AI for therapy might work, but I think people will drift back to humans. And just side note, I read something recently that the two most asked questions to AI are, can you help me find a therapist? And how do I make connection?
Yeah, and that's a great segue. I was gonna talk about that, especially for AI in our industry. And what I love is that JUCO is really going at it. They're not shying away from the topic. The thing is that graphic designers have been designing with assets since the beginning of graphic design. So the AI, we're just teaching students and helping them understand how to partner with AI. When I was at Hallmark, I was designing with with assets that were not created by me, almost 90% of the time. Because Hallmark houses, I think it's like the top 5 in the world that has the most creatives under one roof. So I knew that those assets were being designed by a human, and I could go talk to the human that created it. So that gets a little fuzzy right now, but I feel safe in the sense right now that, you know, my students cannot just plug in the project brief and just say, design this, you know, project brief. It's not that robust right now. And the most important thing is that it doesn't take away from the unique way that you would solve a project or that you would solve a project. And so innovation is still alive and well, so.
Great, thank you. So we have about 10 minutes left, so I'm gonna roll 2 questions into one, and this is a little bit of a challenge for our panel and they're up for it. So if we could each take maybe about 2 minutes. 2 questions would be, if you could look at yourself, your younger self, so I'm projecting myself looking at these young faces. If I could look at my younger self again, what would you tell your younger self now? And any final thoughts that you would like to leave our students with? Thank you.
I mean, I'm only 22, so I guess. If I was looking at like my high school self, I'd probably just say like get it figured out a little bit sooner. Like high school was a whole lot different for me just because I didn't really know what I wanted to do just because I played sports. So I was like, well, I'll just go to school with whoever's gonna give me a scholarship to do it. And I love William Jewell and, you know, I'm proud to be an alumni, but I do feel like there were better avenues for me in terms of developing my career. So I think being at a junior college gives you that opportunity to kind of have that indecisive phase and still allow yourself to figure out what it is you want to do without having to just dive headfirst into it. Especially with how challenging some universities can be and like the course load they have. And then I guess last thoughts would just, you know, don't rush anything. Life is life, so there's a lot you guys can do, and we've kind of touched on it each individually. You're gonna make mistakes, and that's okay. It's not the end of the world. I hope nothing but success for all of you guys in your future endeavors, and when we network around the room, you know, feel free to get a business card. We can sit down, chat over coffee, whatever, if you want to learn more about the organization. But yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna start with the other question first. Please, I beg you guys, be continued learners. Continuous learning. You've got a free training you can sign up for it. I mean, is it gonna be life-changing? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you just take little nuggets out of it, but please don't get complacent where you're at. Be a continuous learner, figure out what you don't know, figure out what's new, what's happening. I think that is so important as we go about whether, you know, you're interacting with people or, you know, there's always something you can be doing to improve or to learn. And then taking that a step further, like telling other people about it. I feel like sometimes we go to trainings and you sit in a training or you sit in a thing like this and you learn some really good nugget and then nothing happens with it. Like you don't tell anybody else about it. And so I think those are really important things. And then what would I tell my younger self? I guess I'm not 22. I guess I would say, don't be afraid to, how do I want to word this? Take a chance on yourself. I feel like sometimes when I was younger, I had this plan and I had to be rigid and I had to do X, Y, and Z because that was what was expected. And life's really just not that way. And take the chance on yourself. So somebody tells you no, okay. No's a full sentence. Remember that too. They're gonna wish they hadn't given me the mic. No is a full sentence. But that's okay because like he was saying earlier, no doesn't always necessarily mean a no. Maybe it means no now, but something later is gonna come up. Or maybe it means no and that's disappointing and that sucks. And then this other opportunity comes up and you're like, oh my God, I'm so glad that was a no earlier. So I think that that's really important as well. And I had one more and now I can't think about what it was. Oh, actually, I do know what it is. I'm a social worker. I've done a lot of different things within this field. We were chatting about that a little bit earlier. Your mental health is really important as well. If you're doing something and it's detrimental to your well-being, please be mindful of that. Do check-ins, have you know, have a therapist set up, you know, whatever your plan is, whatever that route looks like for you, but making sure that you're taking care of yourself. We're all here as helping professions, and that's really important, and work is important, and we need people like you guys who are wanting to enter these types of fields. But take care of yourself too. You are a priority and you matter.
So I think I could go back and tell my younger self, I would tell myself just to chill out and enjoy the stage I was at in life. And I think I spent a lot of my college years, I was in school in DC where everybody had amazing internships. I did too, but there was just this panic to find the perfect job and to find the perfect career. And that pressure, I think, poisoned the environment so that we couldn't enjoy ourselves as students. I read this excellent book last week called Mastery by Robert Greene, where he talks about just he goes through all these famous people like Mozart and Darwin and Da Vinci, and talks about the importance of recognizing the stages of life, that when you're figuring stuff out, that's the time to figure stuff out and enjoy yourself as a student. I almost think of JUCO as like a nest or an incubator, that this is a launch pad. I often call it the launch pad when I'm talking to students who go here. And then understanding that like 20s to 30s or whenever you're in the first 10 years or so of your career, it's almost like an apprenticeship. And I think sometimes when people come to these panel things, they're like, that's so intimidating. All these people have like a bunch of initials after their names. They look so like they got it all figured out. But what you aren't really seeing is all of the hills and valleys and gray zones where we couldn't figure out what we were doing or what the next path was. And that book Mastery just has all these little vignettes of like impressive people like Mozart, that they struggled in their career path as well. And so just recognizing and being able to be present in the station you're in, I would have gone back and told myself that and just enjoyed being a college student or just taking whatever classes I was taking and just being present in that rather than worrying about what my resume was going to look like or if I was going to get a job in a crummy economy in the early 90s.
So I'm gonna talk about, I referenced the intro to graphic design class. So one of the professionals that comes to speak to the students, he has a graphic that shows from point A to point B, and it was a straight line, and he was like, this is what coming out of college I thought my career was gonna be. And then the next graphic is this tied up little swirly knot, and he's like, this is actually what happened. And I feel like that's kind of what we've all kind of illustrated for you. And so I would say the most learning came for me from the mistakes, and what I learned, not even really mistakes or even rejection or like a pivot where I had to, you know, just go a different route or go a different path. What I learned about myself was that the passion that I had for the field that I wanted to go into. And I thought I was passionate before, but then all those bends around the road really made it very, very clear, crystal clear, that this is what I want, this is really what I want to do. So, and also, especially in graphic design, I've also learned about, I can't even count how many of my friends have said that once I got into design school or once I got to Hallmark or once I, you know, wherever I landed, all of a sudden they just like breathed the breath of, you know, just a deep breath of, these are my people, you know, I'm with my people. So you're not alone. And especially the creative community, it's small, but it's really, really supportive and sweet. So.
Thank you. That's a lot of great advice, isn't it? It's tremendous. We've covered a lot of topics this morning, and I hope that you really enjoyed it. And so we're coming to the end of this official part of our panel discussion. But before we end this, I really want to say thank you again to Sean, to Hunter, to Sherry, and to Amy. Let's give them a round of applause.